The 2015-16 season saw the Milwaukee Bucks go 33-49, which was a major disappointment. The previous season, the young team had gone 41-41, and they entered the playoffs as a 6th seed, and that success was thought to be a good foundation. The Bucks added Greg Monroe through free agency last year, and it seemed everyone thought it was a foregone conclusion that they were going to be a better team, and everyone penciled them in as a playoff team. But Monroe has not fit into the scheme of things in Milwaukee, and the Bucks have been trying to get rid of him probably since last year's trade deadline. Leaving point guard duties to Michael Carter-Williams didn't pay off as well either. They added Matthew Dellavedova to come in and handle the point guard duties, and they also added Mirza Teletovic. Both acquisitions will help bolster their bench. Jason Kidd mentioned that Giannis will play point guard this upcoming season. I don't know if that will be full-time or not, but it's something I'll be looking forward to checking out. The Bucks have far better talent and upside than the 33-49 team showed last year. The bottom line is, this should be a make-or-break year for head coach Jason Kidd. After a positive first season, it's not good when a team that added talent takes a big step back, and Kidd also appeared disconnected at times last year. In my opinion, the Bucks play in the best division in the NBA, and it might not get any better for Milwaukee this upcoming season. Missing the playoffs for the Chicago Bulls last year was downright unacceptable. As a Bulls fan, it was probably one of the most frustrating years since becoming a Bulls fan. They will beat the best teams in the league like the Spurs, the Thunder, and the Cavaliers, and the next night they will lose to teams like the Timberwolves, the Magic, or the Nuggets. Overall, the Bulls were far from bad, but in a suddenly improved Eastern Conference, their 42-40 record wasn't good enough to crack the top 8. Chicago entered the offseason with high expectation, looking to build around their star Jimmy Butler. Moving Derrick Rose seems like the right decision given his upcoming free agency and injury history, but signing Rajon Rondo undid all the good that the Rose trade accomplished. I love the signing of Dwayne Wade. He's one of my favorite players of all time, and I always wanted to see him play as a Chicago Bull. But it's difficult to see Rondo and D-Wade fitting well with Jimmy Butler. Butler is now surrounded by poor shooters who are both over the age of 30. I hope I'm wrong about the Bulls this season. The Bulls could easily prove me wrong over the course of the season, but it's difficult to see these players fitting well together. Last year, the Indiana Pacers were a good but not great team, one that struggled to score consistently, but was still able to push Toronto to the limits in the first round of the playoffs. Now with a new coach and a dramatically different roster, Indiana looks to compete at a higher level this season. Indiana's offseason moves helped the team's vision for the future. Adding Jeff Teague, Thaddeus Young, and Al Jefferson should help the offense by giving Paul George more options. Al Jefferson off the bench is an intriguing option that Indiana should consider, and it could pay dividends. Meanwhile, the young Miles Turner has the potential to add a lot to this team as well. The most important player on this team is easily still Paul George. He's a bona fide superstar in this prime who can easily take over a game. Adding more offensive weapons should allow the Pacers to fully utilize his skill set, and as a result, they should field a more potent offense this year. The Indiana Pacers have a much higher ceiling now than they did a year ago, and I believe they will have a chance to sneak into a top 4 position in the Eastern Conference. The Detroit Pistons are a team on the rise. Stan Van Gundy has coached this team to a better record every year of his tenure so far. Even though Cleveland swept them in the first round, each of the 4 games were competitive. Detroit has 2 fairly young key players in Reggie Jackson and Andre Drummond, and went into the offseason hoping to build around this core. For the most part, Detroit was successful in free agency. They added several key backup players like Ish Smith and John Lure, and they also drafted well with Henry Ellenson and Michael Benajay, and they didn't lose any vital pieces. It isn't clear what Detroit's ceiling will be, and they aren't guaranteed a playoff spot in the crowded East, but they should easily be as good as they were last year and field a very talented team that could make some noise next season. There isn't much to say about the NBA champion Cleveland Cavaliers that hasn't already been said. It was the first professional championship for Cleveland since the 1964 Browns. signaling the end of the so-called Cleveland sports curse. The Cavaliers have no glaring weaknesses and understandably made no major moves in free agency. Maybe if LeBron finally starts to decline, or the Kevin Love situation noticeably deteriorates, or for some reason J.R. Smith doesn't re-sign, the Cavaliers could possibly struggle. And yes, J.R. Smith is still a free agent as of September 5th. Outside of those possibilities, there seems to be little standing in Cleveland's way in the East this season. While it would certainly be interesting to see Toronto, Boston, New York, or any other team leapfrog the Cavaliers in the standings, but I highly doubt that will happen. Cleveland is the best team in the East and will likely occupy the top spot all season. After the Cavaliers, this division should be interesting and competitive. Indiana and Detroit are probably both better this season than either Milwaukee or Chicago. But both the Bulls and the Bucks could easily outplay my projections if everything goes right. I have coming in 5th place, the Milwaukee Bucks. This team is still constructing its identity, but until they move on from Greg Monroe and Michael Carter-Williams, the Bucks won't be able to successfully move forward. I have them winning around 30 to 35 games. Coming in 4th place, the Chicago Bulls. The best players on the teams aren't natural fits together, and all 3 players need the ball in their hands to be effective. I believe it will be some highs and some lows, and I have the Bulls winning around 42 to 46 games. Coming in 3rd place is the Detroit Pistons. I expect Reggie Jackson, Andre Drummond, and Stanley Johnson to improve their game and become more consistent. The only thing holding this team back is a go-to scorer in crunch time. Can that be Reggie Jackson? I see this team winning around 44 to 48 games. Coming in 2nd place is the Indiana Pacers. Superstar Paul George and a couple of off-season acquisitions will have this team competing at the top of the East. I expect Paul George to have a monster season, and he might become a dark horse candidate for league MVP. I see this team winning around 48 to 54 games. And coming in 1st place is the Cleveland Cavaliers. Was it ever any doubt? If the Cleveland Cavaliers play like they're supposed to, there's no team in the East that can compete with them. The rest of the East better hope J.R. Smith doesn't re-sign back with the team, because that could possibly hurt the team chemistry a little bit. But I have the Cavaliers winning 55 to 60 games. Absolutely fleeced the Orlando Magic by trading away an underperforming Serge Ibaka for Victor Oladipo, Ersan Ilyasova, and the rights to the 11th pick, Domantas Sabonis, out of Gonzaga. Now, Sabonis is not an elite athlete. He's not as talented as his dad.